Personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Conversations. Today, I'm having a cup of coffee and sitting down with Mr. Paul Engel, our Constitution expert in the area. We're so fortunate to have Mr. Engel and his wealth of knowledge about constitutional issues and a lot of history as well. Mm-hmm. And we're going to start talking about, since it's election year, how we go about electing a president. Or selecting a president, or end up with a president. Okay, how about that?
There you go.
All right, first of all, Paul, how does a person, if you wanted to run for president, what criteria would you have to meet to be president?
There are three criteria in the Constitution. You have to be at least 35 years of age. You have to be a natural-born citizen of the United States, and you have to be a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. Now, the natural-born citizen actually gets into quite an interesting debate. If you want to get into the debate, maybe you want to check out my website. I've written a couple of articles talking about Vattel, Emmerich de Vattel, and there's a whole debate with him and how do you define a natural-born citizen.
Okay, so what about a convicted felon is excluded, right?
Nope.
You can be a convicted felon.
You can be a convicted felon and you can be president of the United States. Only the requirements you have is that you be 35 years of age, a natural-born citizen, which basically means you were a citizen at birth, right? You weren't naturalized, and that you've been in the country 14 years.
Okay. After you say, okay, I want to be president, I meet qualifications, what happens next?
Well, let's deal with the way it's been manipulated to work today, right? So today we've been going through primaries. This is primary season.
Right.
And what a primary is a publicly funded private election for a private organization to limit your choices on the ballot.
Right. It's a bottleneck to weed out people they don't want.
It gives the political parties control. Right. Because in a perfect world, the members of that political party would say, here's our champion. Right. That's the one we want on the ballot. Doesn't exactly work that way because the parties like to manipulate things, right? They'll spend more money with this person than that person. The Democrats have this whole super delegate process, right, which has been used. Was it in 2016 and 2020? Bernie Sanders was leading the process until the party said, no, we want somebody else. Right. So that's a mess. But the primaries are how you get on the ballots, how the political parties put you on the ballots in all 50 states. We do not have a national election for president. There are 51 state-led elections for presidential electors.
Who's the one? Puerto Rico?
Nope.
Or Virgin Islands? Oh, D.C.
Okay. DC was given electoral votes in the 23rd, maybe? I'd have to double check. Okay. One of the latter amendments. They were given, they don't have representation in Congress, but they do get electoral votes as if they were the smallest state.
Right. Okay. So that takes place. Okay. Once they go through that filter, then we end up with usually just two candidates and some unknown independents.
So you can have, different states have different rules for getting on the ballot. So you can have independents, non-party affiliated. If they meet a state's requirement, they can be on that state's ballot. Because remember, we have 51 votes, 51 state elections for presidential electors, not for the president, for electors. And this is, again, where we've drifted away from what the Constitution says to give the political parties more influence.
Right.
So once you get there, we get to Election Day in November, and you go in and, believe it or not, you do not vote for president.
No.
Even if the ballot says so. I was doing some research. In 2020, 3/4 of the states lied to their citizens and said they were voting for president. What you vote for is called an elector for president.
Right.
So the way it was designed to work is we're sitting here in Middle Tennessee. Tennessee gets, I think, about 18 or 20 electors. we would choose our neighbors and say, you do the job. We would, just like you elect representatives to Congress, you do the same thing. What happened is the political parties didn't like the lack of control. So they said, all right, we're going to get the states to pass laws that say, first, political party, give us a slate of electors, right? We've got X number, you pick X number of people, and those people are going to promise to vote for their party's candidate because they're little party apparatchiks.
Right.
The only thing is they can't be in Congress, but they pick them. Then when the people vote for those electors, almost all the states are winner take all, meaning whoever wins the popular vote in that state.
Except there's a couple states. Is it Vermont or New Hampshire?
No, I think
there's a northeastern state
that has
a split.
Yeah, there's a couple where they split them up, but the majority of them, the rest 48 plus DC, winner take all. So that you're basically not voting for an elector, you're voting for a party now.
Right.
That's my party's candidate. I'm voting for the party. Once that is done, we have not elected a president yet. Now it's all but a fait accompli because of the way we've manipulated the system, but the actual vote for president doesn't happen until December.
Right.
I think it's the first Wednesday after the second Monday in December.
When each state,
all the electors in the state meet within their own state, and then they cast their votes.
Right.
That's when you actually vote for. That's the actual only national vote we have in this country is that one.
So basically, what we see on election night, these electoral votes, electoral college count that we get at the end, or don't get at the end of the night, maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whenever they decide to count, that's basically a commitment.
Yes, these people have promised.
Right.
Now, it's interesting. Many of the states, the penalty for being what's called a faithless elector is pretty small. So we've seen in the past, we saw it in 2016. I believe we even saw it down in 2000, where you had calls by party officials saying, don't vote what you're told to vote, vote your conscience.
Right.
Which means don't vote for what the state said, vote who you think should be. Which actually was the way it originally was, but that's a whole other mess.
Well, let's talk just a second about the Electoral College. Why? There's some people that want to get rid of the Electoral College and go on popular vote. Could you explain why it was set up the way it is for fairness sake?
Well, the answer is simple. It's the people do not elect the president, the states do.
Right.
And they do that because look at the job of the president, not the one we've made, the king we've made. Look at the Constitution, Article 2. The president basically is there an executive of the government of the Union of States.
Right.
So if you look at it, most of what he does is, he receives foreign dignitaries. He's commander-in-chief of the military. But look at what we focus on: appointing judges, appointing cabinet officials, signing treaties. All of these are done with the advice and consent of the Senate, which was designed to be the representative of the states, not of the people. So the people don't elect the president, the states do.
Right.
So each state gets a certain number of electors, they get a certain number of votes, and then they vote for the president. That's been lost. We don't teach it in school. And like you said, a lot of people are trying to bury that, partially because I don't think they understand it, partially because they're trying to turn us from a republic into a democracy. And it's a lot easier to sway people in large concentrated areas than it is to sway an entire nation.
Right. You see Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
You get everybody pulling one way there. That carries a lot of weight in numbers.
Yes, exactly. And so if we did have a supposed national popular vote, then the decisions would be made by the population centers.
Right. Because
it's just more efficient to campaign in those areas.
Right.
It's more efficient to bribe them with goodies because you get more bang for the buck.
The East and West Coast would elect the president, and the middle of the country would be left second win.
So all those states in the middle would effectively have lost their representation.
Right.
So this way we say, okay, we're going to do it. It's based on members of Congress, both House and Senate. So it's distributed based on population, but it's still, the states get more votes than the big states get more votes than little states, but the states are the ones voting for president.
Okay. Bottom line, Paul, does my vote count?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. But there's one other step you have to remember. After the vote in December, the the state electors sign and certify.
Yeah.
They send that certificate to the president of the Senate, which is the sitting vice president.
Right.
And then you've heard it all the time, right? You talk about Congress certifying the election. Congress does not certify anything.
Right.
The president has those ballots counted in front of Congress.
Right.
Congress is a witness. They're also there so that should nobody get a majority, which is extremely hard with the two parties having such control nowadays, if it happens, then the House decides the presidency by state, and the Senate decides the vice presidency.
Okay. How many electoral votes are there total?
There are a total of 538.
Okay. So to win the presidency, by that count, how many do you have to have?
Well, if all the electors are appointed,
right,
you need 270.
270.
If they're all appointed. So remember in 2020, there were at least 5 states that illegally appointed electors, right? Those electors have to be appointed in a manner described by the legislature of the state. When the courts come in and say, no, we're going to change the rules. When the Secretary of State comes in and says, no, we're going to change the rules, those electors not legally appointed. Those electors, their votes should never have gone to D.C.
Yeah.
In fact, I worked with a couple of states saying, really, you should be doing this. If those electors, those votes aren't sent to D.C., they only count the number of electors that actually voted. So that's why during the 2020 kerfuffle, right, if the state was found disqualified, if you hadn't done it properly, you take, say, again, let's say it's 20 votes, you take them out of the pool. Now the magic number isn't 270, it's 260.
Right. It scales back based on the percentage.
It's the actual number of electors present, or electors that
gotcha.
vote.
Okay. All right. So, Paul, a lot of people have a lot of questions about the process, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to come up with some sort of way to help people dig into this.
Yes. So I've been doing a series of articles on the website, constitutionstudy.com.
Right.
I did one on primaries. I'm going to be releasing one March 4th on how we actually elect the president. And I realized they're a little disjointed. I'm actually going to start putting on some classes. I've offered to do one here in Shelbyville. I'm probably going to do one on Zoom, and I'll do it wherever I can, where we're going to sit down and discuss, and I will show you from the Constitution and the laws of the United States, both how we elect the president and how Congress has and the states have meddled with that process so that even the states don't elect the president actually anymore. It's the state political apparatchik that have the most power in it.
Okay. So we'll hear more about that later as far as your classes and so forth. But guys, I know you probably have a lot of questions about the election. And I know there's people out there that won't get to see this video unless you share it and like it. And we want to make sure that we get this circulated so that people will know about what Paul's trying to do. And if you would share or like this video, we're going to put everybody in a drawing, and we're going to draw from one of Paul's books, The Constitution Study, which is great information. It's in-depth look at the Constitution, and also a read the Constitution in 30 days. So if you would share or like this video, we're going to put your name in a big pot, and we're going to draw it out, and you're going to get these 2 books. So do that. And I know people will be proud to get this information. Paul, thanks for sitting down. I look forward to how you unfold this little plan of education, because election time will be here soon. November will be here before you know it. And people have a lot of questions. They don't really understand. I don't really understand. So I appreciate you educating me somewhat today. And we look forward to what's going to come.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I've been using a saying lately. We hear the saying, knowledge is power. To me, knowledge is not power until it's put into action.
Right.
Whether that be liking and subscribing, whether that's reading or learning, it's when we take that knowledge and we use it to inform how we live our lives, that knowledge becomes power. And that's how we remain the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Right. And it's time for action in this
Absolutely.
country. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back again real soon with another edition with Paul. And hopefully soon we'll have some dates for you to put on your calendar. Thanks again, Paul. Thanks.